Hi, this is Jennifer Riccinelli, Editorial Director of Stone World, and I'm excited because Sandya Dandamudi has come back to talk to us. She is our 2020 Fabricator of the Year. Hi, Sandya.
Hi, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for reaching out.
Why don't you remind people who you are? I forgot to mention that you are with GI Stone out of Chicago.
Well, I'm Sandya Dandamudi, and I'm president and co-founder of GI Stone. And we have been fabricators in the commercial space for almost 30 years. Well, actually, we started residentially, for the first 6-7 years. And I think we're still, we still dabble in that, but we're pretty much a commercial shop. So we're prolific fabricators. We're extremely versatile. We do both interior and exterior work. Anywhere from countertops to dimensional stone lobbies to wall cladding, sometimes even landscape. Whenever we bid on a building, we like to do the entire building. So whatever the needs of that building are, we fulfill. And we're very fortunate to be here.
Great. And I think the last time we talked, you had some transition in your shop. You were saying being in a city, your footprint is small and you were doing some revamping for more efficiency. And I think you have been even doing more since we last spoke.
Yes, we have. The last time I spoke to you, I said we did something really simple, like, clean our shop, and it literally increased our efficiency by approximately 10%. I don't have any hard values on it. They're just more intuitive. We actually know where we can find things, so people have been more efficient. We also bought a fastback, that's a faster polisher. And that leads to the next topic. Because it was so fast, Park Industries, thank you. But because it was so fast, we needed it to feed it. It would only work 2 hours a day. I mean, I don't want people to work 12, 15 hours, but 2 hours is crazy. So we ended up buying a Baca. It's a dual table, with a robotic arm, and it has quadrupled our capacity.
Wow.
And we're not experiencing a quadruple yet because we're going through the transition. So we're experiencing probably about 150% more capacity. And it is an amazing piece of equipment. And I think the stars in the stone industry right now is tech and equipment. It used to be just stone, right? Everything was about stone, whereas now we just came back from coverings. I wasn't there, but a couple of people on my team, and everything was about the software, the tech, what's out there, how are we manipulating stone, what are the other products? So it's just a really good time, for us to catch up, to be a really good manufacturer.
Absolutely. I was at coverings as well, and it's all about technology. And, the other you hear, I sit in on the Fabricator Forum in the state of the stone industry, and the other is a struggle with finding good labor and retaining it. So I think this increase in technology helps in that with a little too. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Because, we're in the city, I don't want to move out. I love my lifestyle here. So there is that. But that being said, labor in a way is getting more educated, also, they're doing CNC, they're, upping their qualifications. It's not like where you just had a guy polishing, which is how our industry sort of started out. But also, I think we've all heard this in other industries, this whole hybrid workplace, it's also coming to us. You would think that if you're a stone fabricator, you have a stone shop, there's no question of hybrid. You show up at 6 a.m., right? Well, our machinery can be now programmed from anywhere. So for example, our shop foreman, our shop manager had a personal emergency and had to go out of the country. And he was working every day programming the machine remotely. These are things that, of course, somebody still has to lift and carry the stone. But even that, we got another jib crane into the facility. So making movement a lot more easier. And I think that, that's, and the Baca that I told you we just bought, that can be programmed from anywhere. We don't have to stand there. It also saves us our labor because now you have that one person who's operating 2 machines. So I think efficiency, better product, better capacity, better labor management. It's all kind of synchronized and they all are overlapping each other. So, and frankly, it allows us dare I say this, it allows us to pay and compensate our people better so that they have good, sustainable jobs. And I think that's a huge topic is, you want to have fair labor practices, besides ethical sourcing, and you want to make sure that we all can earn a living and enjoy what we do.
Absolutely. And I know, I live in northern New Jersey, outside of New York. I know expenses are higher being in a city like Chicago. It is a little more expensive than, say, if someone were in the Midwest, and you want to be able, your employees, like you said, to have a life and be able to afford to live.
By the same token, though, it's getting competitive out there. We're not getting paid anymore. So where do you find this money?
Right.
You find this money by trying to utilize the resources you have as best as you possibly can.
And do you find doing this that your employees are appreciative and it has created a better work culture and dedication?
Well, I don't know what they say behind my back, but no, I think it does. I think we're actually going through reviews right now, and I think it does. We haven't had a lot of attrition. I know from, even though I tend to be focused in our own world, pretty, we have our own glasses and we're just looking through our own lenses. You do hear from other people, and people are always talking about, people moving, and we don't have that much movement. I'm going to hunt them down if we do, but no, we don't have that much movement. We've been pretty fortunate. I mean, of course, we have the usual where people are moving or, but not because they're looking for another job immediately. We try to keep them, happy is kind of an overused word, but we try to keep them, I want them, I've always said this, we're not your first family, but we'd like to be your second one. And
Absolutely. Spend a lot of time together. I know even myself, with our stone roll crew, we travel together, and
yes,
yeah, it's important that everybody gets along. So
yes.
you mentioned reviews. So does that give your employees a chance to get feedback from them if anything's bothering them? It's like an open communication.
Absolutely. We're pretty transparent slash direct. In fact, sometimes one could argue a little too direct. And so that has to be a two-way channel. It can't just work one way. I mean, obviously, based on hierarchy, the balance is not always 50-50, let's be honest about it, but we want to try to make that as close as possible.
Right.
And our weekly meetings, we try not to personalize our critique. It's inevitable that you do sometimes, but you really try to say, here's an example. These are the options. What can we do? So training yourself to speak a different language, well, not a different language, but a language that's appropriate is difficult. It's something that we're constantly working on.
Absolutely. Everything's a process. That's what I say.
Yes.
So making this transition and buying the Baka robot, what considerations did you think about, for somebody else maybe in your position that they want to take that step, it's going to grow their business, what they can produce?
Well, I first have to be a little cautious, because the economy, it's scary. The economy is a little bit blurry. We don't know what's happening. I can tell you that while we have a healthy 2023, I cannot say that about 2024 and 2025. We've seen projects go offline. We've seen, things getting reinvented in different ways. We hear and we know that there are interest rate hikes. So when you're a large scale fabricator and when you're doing large projects, what happens is even if one or two of them derail, that's a huge risk involved. Whereas if we were doing, a lot of single families, a couple of families, it's not as, you're not as vulnerable. So you have to be you can't be very risk averse. You have to be able to have that appetite. And it's a hard one because, here we are investing money at a time when we're not sure where the economy is going. So that being said, it's difficult for me to advise somebody else to make the decision that we made. And the reason we made that is because, I've been in this business long enough to know that if you act when it's too late, you kind of have to act today for 2 years from now. And, one thing great about construction is that you're always going to have to build something. There's an ebb and flow. So maybe, that high rise is not going to be built this year. And maybe we need to tighten our belts for this year, but next year it will be. But it still sometimes doesn't answer the individual. As a business owner, technically I could lay off people and call that a day, right? How do I protect that from not happening? And that's where you're looking at different markets. We're trying to look at what the trends are. And we have found that the residential market, at least in Chicago, is robust. And so, a lot of people are still doing rehabs, and especially with the economy, it's cheaper to do a rehab than maybe to buy a new house.
Right.
So we're actually getting a little bit more involved, not as our core business, but definitely, as an answer. We're trying to look at out of town work in Chicago, at least, and I know every place is regional. All the developers in Chicago are going to Denver. They're going to Austin. They're going to Dallas. They're going to Nashville. So we just finished a pretty significant job in Austin. We're going to also start a job in Nashville, and we're hoping to get a job in Dallas. So, we're trying to explore that, and we're trying to see how does that work with labor. Like, do we work with installers that are local? So, okay, that was a long-winded answer.
No, but I'd sum it up is that to do your homework, you have to think a little outside the box, think of other opportunities, that you could switch gears a little to keep things going. And I've sat in sessions before. I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was Stone Expo, where, they say the time to invest, you prepare for the dark cloud, but then you're going to be ready too when that passes. So,
and that's what we're hoping to do. I don't want to be like caught deer in headlights,
right.
You cannot, my one piece of advice I'll give anyone, you cannot stop innovating. Irregardless of the financial environment, you have to be ahead of the game. You can't just stay the old way. There's a lot of people out there who are now looking at this business as a serious business, and they're getting involved. And you need to bring that to it.
Absolutely. So with that said, are you cutting like porcelain slabs now, or the sintered stone? Or...
Oh yeah, no, we actually do a lot of porcelain. We do sintered stone. We do decked in. We do quartz. That's why I like to pride ourselves in being possibly the most versatile contractor out there. I think the only solid surface we don't do is solid surface. We don't do corian, or cultured marble type products. But otherwise, we foresee that this year we're going to be doing more decked in and more lapitec, for example, sapien stone. Looks are changing a little bit. I was reading the hard surfaces report the other day, and they said that, in America, at least, they've had a 30% drop in quartz products, whereas they've had an increase in stone, which is great, right, and also an increase in porcelain and sintered stones.
Yes. It does seem it's making its way into the market. So, and I've heard mixed reviews. There's fabricators like you that are cutting it, and I know there's some that are hesitant to start. I heard there is a learning curve. How was it for you to start when you started cutting these materials?
Our first experience was years ago when we started cutting quartz, and we were like, this stuff is not here to stay. We're stone fanatics, we're like, no, we're stone snobs to a certain degree. I mean, that's kind of in our DNA. Well, guess what? Quartz was here to stay. So in the beginning, we had a learning curve. We had to learn how to polish it better. Especially the darker quartzes were a little bit of a problem. We had to understand not just the cutting speed, but also the composition of quartz, and which, it's a manufactured product. So now we had to deal with something completely different. We had to look at who are we buying it from? Who are these people? What is the warranty? What is the quality? I mean, otherwise there's 20,000 quartz manufacturers. And so when porcelain came, this is about 3-4 years ago that we started actively getting involved, and whether it's decked in, we now knew that we had to be with manufacturers that were viable, that were known quantity, that were transparent about their specifications, and that were also extremely helpful in training us. So a lot of these manufacturers have trained us. We didn't have to go to a special school. And so while the learning curve was there, I think we approached it correctly. We really went to our manufacturers and said, hey, we would love to use you guys, teach us how to. And they've been amazing. I was at the Lapitec factory, for example, in Italy last year. and it was an incredible experience, or whether it was Costantino in Spain. I mean, all of these guys have been very helpful.
That's good to hear. And when I talk to them, these different and some of these porcelain slab manufacturers, that's what they're saying. They do want to educate the fabricator because, of course, they know, that there's still challenges, or you might, and they want to be able to help you, obviously, because the more ease you have cutting it, the better for them too.
And we found that support, like Quantra, who we just mentioned earlier. We have found that support throughout the industry. And if that support doesn't exist, then we're not going to partner with that vendor.
Exactly. So you mentioned Quantra, you have a big trip coming up. So like you said, you're back to traveling.
Oh God, you know what? I am so happy. We started taking some baby steps. We insist on taking our clients to where they're getting their material from. And it's not just a question of being transparent, but it's but it's also a question of them understanding and being in control of what they're going to eventually get, right? I mean, this is a time-honored tradition. But also, these days we like to go to different countries and different factories because we want them to know that these are places that are ethically sourcing their materials, that they have state-of-the-art technology, and Quantra and Pukarna are certainly examples of that. So yes, we're taking one of our largest clients there, but it's 120 degrees there right now. So we're just going to, besides the factory visit, we're going to spend our time in spas.
I don't blame you. Bring a handheld fan.
Yes, I wish, but you can't predict, we need the stone in a couple of months. So this is.
Yeah. Last year I was on a trip to Spain in June, visiting on the other side tile factories. But we could only go in the factories in the morning because by the afternoon it was in the 90s, and with the kiln, they're like, you don't want to be in the factory.
No.
Oh, that's great. So I'm glad to hear. It sounds like, each year you expanded on what you've done the previous year. You keep evolving and growing, and we're happy you like to share with us. Is there anything else you'd like to tell before we sign off for today?
No, I think, you've given me the opportunity to talk quite a bit, so which I appreciate. I will just repeat, innovation is not just good for the individual fabricator or installer, but innovation is good for all of us in our industry, and we need to keep our industry healthy. So I would just say, please don't, constantly evolve.
Absolutely. And I have to say thank you to you, because it's fabricators like you and industry members who are willing to share, that help others grow, and overall is good for the stone industry.
You still have to come by and take a tour, Jenna.
Yes, I do. I have to get back out to Chicago. So I plan to, definitely. I would love it. So thank you. So thank you again for taking the time, and good luck on your trip. And I can't wait to hear all about it when you get back. We'll have to schedule another interview.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye, Sandya.
Bye.